What's up, everybody? Logan Hanks here. So Mike can hear the track hoe running there. I had to come out here. It's a little chilly this morning. I hadn't cranked that thing in a while. I'm on a farm that we're having to do some clearing on to get a lot of the ground back into production and get it back how it used to be. So I had several people that have reached out to me to the point that I finally did watch it. I started watching that show Kiss the Ground, some of you may have heard of, and it's kind of talks a lot about soil and farming and a lot of the bad sides of I guess commercial farming, pretty much, like the tillage and working the soil up and all that. I just wanted to talk about it because I did finally watch it. I had originally watched about half of it and then quit watching it because I'm not gonna lie, I was very tree huggerish, and I am not a tree hugger kind of guy, so I quit watching it. And I think I quit watching it about the part when Ian Somerhalder was kind of lecturing me on pastures. And I'll be honest, it was hard for me to take it seriously having the Vampire Diaries guy kind of lecture me. So I quit watching it. But then I had probably 2 or 3 more people that texted me or asked me on Facebook or messaged me, you know, man, what'd you think about that? I'd like to know what a farmer's thoughts were on it. And so I watched it. And I gotta tell you, it's a well done. It was a good, done well. Well done well, that would be the same thing. But I thought overall they did a good job making it. And they have some, aside from the celebrities, I wasn't a huge fan of the celebrity people talking, like Jason Mraz, Ian Somerhalder. It's hard for me to take it seriously getting agriculture lessons from them. Didn't mind Woody Harrelson as much because it seemed like he was more just the voiceover, but kind of and Patricia Arquette, that part made it a little tough, although Patricia pretty much just talked about crap and poop, so that didn't bother me too bad because she might know a lot about that. She's in Hollywood. Most of them probably are full of crap, so that part didn't bother me. But those aside, they did have some farmers that practiced regenerative farming, and thought that was good. They had some ranchers that practice it. The ranchers, they kind of struck me as a little tree huggery. The regenerative farmer did not seem to be. So, you know, I don't think that this is just some hippy dippy stuff. I think that there's something to this. And but there's a few things that I didn't like. Overall, I do think soil health is hugely important, which is why me and my farming operation, my dad's farming operation, and the majority of farmers today do practice no-till because well, for one, it boosts higher yields. You can get better yields. No-till just means you don't work the ground up. You come in and just plant it just the way it is. And most people do a no-till or minimal tillage, which minimal tillage is exactly what it sounds like. You pretty much only do tillage where you have to. And that's most farmers today, I feel like. You don't really have a lot of guys. Well, I'm not gonna say you don't have a lot. There's some people, even in my area, that still believe that you got to disc and do all a place. They're gonna disc it up, run a do all every year, and typically their yields show that because they lose a tremendous amount of topsoil because then it rains, washes that off. They lose the topsoil, come in, do it all over again. That's not good. And most farmers know that. Most guys have adapted with the times, and they've seen the benefits of going to no-till or minimal tillage. Now, it did really vilify any sort of tillage, and there are times when you have to do tillage. The farm I'm on is a prime example. All right, you can see, there's some green here. You can see my tire tracks, see a ton of deer tracks, But this farm was just as grown up as like those trees you see. It used to be farmed. I'm putting it back into farming. It had sat out for a while and had really grown up. Those are, you might can see those are push-ups over there, and it's got some awesome beans. Right here is kind of weak looking, but this right here is where we drive a lot of heavy equipment. It gets kind of beat down, but beans over there are monstrous. Showed a little clip. Those are Asgrow 46X6s for anybody wondering. They are awesome beans. But getting off track here, we're putting this farm back into farming. Some people would be offended by that because we're having to remove some trees to do that. Now, from the standpoint of wildlife and things, it actually helps. Initially, I'm a deer hunter, and it bothered me at first. I was like, man, I'm ruining this deer habitat. Then studying, finding out that actually opening the ground back up where this green stuff can grow here, where it actually gets sunlight, the deer eat the crops. Sometimes to the demise of farmers, but luckily that hasn't been the case out here. But the deer do eat the crops, they eat the greenery, and then once the crop is off, some green stuff will grow. I may even implement some cover crops out here. This ground is really wet, so I don't know. But I say all that to say, when we remove the trees, we have to come in with a cutting disc. We got to work the soil up. So we have to do some tillage out here. Now, I'm gonna leave some trees. I don't want people thinking that I'm wiping out the whole environment here, but I'm putting it back into farming. This place actually sold. They were gonna subdivide it, and thank the Lord that it didn't work. I think the ground wouldn't perk, it's so wet. So now putting it back into farming, what it initially was. And hopefully every year building up the soil. We'll do the early on tillage to get it back to working ground, and then won't do any more tillage after that. Hopefully all no-till. But that's just a case where you do have to do some tillage. And there's a lot of cases where you will have to do some tillage. In a wet fall or harvest, which we've had the last several years, you're gonna rut the field up with the combines and the tractors trying to get the crop out. When you do that, you typically need to come in and work the field up the next year to get it ready to plant. So in that case, you would till up pretty much where you rutted it up. If you have bad water standing in spots, there's times when you have to go in and till the ground up to kind of get it to dry out and take the moisture and things like that. So there are times when tillage is required. You know, if you have a hard pan and water just sits there on the ground, and you know the crop is weak right there, it's like, I'm not the greatest to explain a hard pan, but there's times when you need to come in and run a ripper that's going to really go deep. So I say all that to say, there are times when you need to do some tillage. Ideally, you want to do no-till. I agree with that. Now, on the other side with cover crops, I'm a big believer in cover crops. I've talked to guys that have done them, seen the benefits of the yields, their soil strength goes up, and if you're a deer hunter or something, there's some really great hunting mixes as well. So I think that's great. I'm gonna get into that, try to get several farms into that this coming year. This field, I don't know. Like I said, I would like to, but I've talked to guys that have done cover crops, and if you have a field that is wet historically, it might not be a good idea to do cover crops, because then they don't get dry and you have a hard time planting them. So you got to think about the cover crops. They're not a good option on every farm. I've got some farms that are really dry, and I think they'll be good for it because they will probably help hold the moisture into the soil, and it'll be a good thing. Now, what comes with cover crops is you got to spray them. One of the things I didn't like about Kiss the Ground was it never talked about the solution. It would say regenerative farming, and I guess they just mean for us to go and look it up on our own. Maybe that's what they're doing. If it is, sorry, kiss the ground. I guess I need to do that. But I would like to have seen them explain the solution. They really villainized spraying herbicides, pesticides. But what's the alternative? The guys that do a lot of organic farming, where they try to not spray anything, they have to do some tillage a lot of times. I'm not going to say all of them. There's some organic farmer watching that's like, that's not true. But I'm just saying, most of those guys, they'll have to go and do tillage between the rows to kill the weeds. And a lot of times, even on organic stuff, they still spray. There's just organic certified chemicals. I guess they probably have more natural ingredients. I don't really know how that works. But that is the other thing. What is the alternative if we can't do any tillage at all, but you don't want us to do any spraying? Then how do we control the weeds? How do we control the bugs? Because bugs and weeds are a problem, and they have to be answered and addressed. So I don't really understand the solution for that. I am going to look into it myself because now I'm intrigued, but I wish they would have offered something on that instead of just painting it in a terribly bad light right out the gate. Because offer a solution, tell us the solution, share it, please. I also wanted to add in there one thing, another thing that I kind of didn't like was they portrayed, especially cattle farmers, and they showed like these really big operations, and it was like the feed lots where they've got just cattle all across in these just pretty much square blocks with no greenery, and they're just giving them a ton of feed, and that's their life. That's not the normal cattle operation. Most cattle operations are smaller operations, and the cattle graze in pastures. They rotate the pastures for the grass. That's the normal. So I didn't like that they portrayed that. And I would like to add that the people that they showed doing these really, I guess, high-end pasture rotations, the one woman said they manage 8,000 acres. That is like a crazy amount of cattle pasture. Most people won't even have an eighth of that to rotate their cattle on. You know, a lot of people are probably have cattle on 30 acres and 40 acres. Some of them get up into the 100 acres, but they rotate them as the grass grows back, and that's how they do that. And there's a statistic where something like 90% of the farming operations, that's cattle and row crop, are small family-owned operations. So people kind of get a bad idea that all the farmers are these big, huge conglomerates farming. Most of us are small family-owned operations, and not these huge operations, especially like when they really paint cattle operations bad. They like to kind of throw that out there. That is not the normal. The normal American cattle operation is pasture grazed cattle, and they live their life in the pastures. They grow up, they're born in the pastures, live their life in pastures. That's normal. And most of your row crop farmers are not working 15, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 acres or more. Most of us are working probably anywhere from 100 to 3,000 acres. I'm pretty sure the average farm size is something like 500 acres. So the normal American farmer is not this huge monster that I feel like they kind of painted us in that. Lastly, that I will hit on, and I wish they would have talked about, from the farming standpoint, one of the biggest threats that I see is the loss of farmland, the loss of forests and farmland together. Just this year, we got one farm that we worked, it's 185 acres. All together is probably 300 acres. Pretty much that whole farm sold and they're going to subdivide the whole thing. It'll take them some years to do it, but that'll be a loss of 300 and something acres. That's going to be no longer any woods, no longer any farmland. It's going to become small yards and packed full of houses. That's one farm this year. I've got a farm that I own all the land around, and there's a piece in it that I don't own. I've been wanting to buy. Well, they got it for sale, and they're asking a fortune for it because they want it to be commercially done, meaning like have some businesses built on it and pretty much eliminate the farm ground and the trees and things on it and make it a concrete paradise with more businesses. They're asking so much money per acre that from a farming standpoint, I just can't do it. There's also another farm that I would love to get. I actually farm it this year, farmed it the past couple of years. They want a bunch of money for it because they want it to be commercial property. They want it to become subdivisions because that's how they make the most money. So one of the biggest threats that I see is the loss of land, the loss of farmland, the loss of forests. Like I said, I know I'm clearing this farm. That bothers somebody. But I am leaving patches of forest on this farm. It's 130 acres total. I'm gonna try to leave a pretty significant amount in forests out here so that the wildlife do have some cover there. But like I said, it will benefit them putting this back into crops like this. And I know I'm getting really long-winded, but that's the biggest issue that I'm seeing. Farmers are conscious of soil health because with better soil health, they get better yields. So I do think that most farmers are trying in that aspect. And one of my challenges is to say, sorry, it's not the corona. It's not the corona. But I want people to stop wiping out farmland and woods to build houses and build businesses. I'm all for moving, I guess, further or moving forward, but we got to remember we need farmland to eat and to live, for our products, our clothes. We need farmland. The wildlife needs farmland. The wildlife needs habitat. We are wiping that out by just steadily buying up farmland to turn it into concrete paradises essentially. And that takes work from all of us. As a farmer that owns land, that takes me not selling the land to people that want to do that. And where that is hard is because they come in and offer you so much money that it's hard to turn down. And I guess it takes a level of determination and probably some craziness to turn down. I mean, I'm talking, there's some crazy money that goes after this stuff. So we got to get people to stop taking this crazy money and let's keep the land in good working farmland and forests and stuff. I mean, that takes all of us too. Like the farmers, yeah, we can do a better job on soil health. I don't disagree with that, but I do think most of us are getting with the times and working towards that as far as cover crops, less tillage and so forth. And and I did want to hit on, they talked about farmers getting these subsidies. It was something like soybeans get $5 a bushel, corn gets $1 something a bushel. I don't even remember the exact prices. Now, I'm not gonna act like we haven't gotten payments, the MFP payments and stuff, with the China stuff going on, the battles between China, the trade wars and all that. We did get some payments. It wasn't nowhere near $5 a bushel on soybeans or $1 something on corn, and that is not the norm. On a normal year, I don't get hardly very much payment at all. And that guy kind of acted like most farmers without the subsidies would not make it. I can tell you my own personal operation would make it without the subsidies, because I plan to not get subsidies. I don't plan my operation to have to live off of government payments. There are guys that do that. That's a dangerous way to set up your operation. If you have to rely on the government to give you money, that's a dangerous way to go. And so yeah, I did want to throw that in there. Most of us are not getting these massive checks. If they are, some guys have figured out some extra loopholes in the system, and there are guys that do that. But yeah, that's my thing. I mean, I think it's good that they're making people conscious of our resources and things out there, but overall I think farmers do a pretty decent job, especially the younger guys that are coming up. I'm a younger farmer, so maybe kind of biased that way, but I think a lot of the younger guys coming up really like to implement the technology and sustain the soil, and I think you're going to see that continue to get better and better. But my challenge to everybody is, let's stop wiping out farmland to build houses. I mean, that's going to be a serious threat, and we're going to see that further and further into the years when farmland it's only steadily becoming more and more scarce, harder to get, harder to find, and they're becoming houses. So let's stop wiping out the land. Let's not just point the finger at farmers, let's point it at everybody else and say, or not everybody else, all of us included. Farmers, we're gonna do a better job. Hey folks, stop wiping out farmland to build. Let's not focus on the money as much as if we want to see the world better, then yeah, I think everybody can agree a greener earth is a better earth. I don't think that it takes a scientist to say that. Regardless of your feelings on climate change or whatever, clearly a greener earth is a better earth. So let's stop making all these concrete jungles, and let's keep land the way it's supposed to be. That was a very long reaction or review to Kiss the Ground, but I wanted to address several issues. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And folks, if you like it, please like it. Please subscribe to my channel. I try to share as much as I can about farming. I'd love to hear your comments. Comment at the bottom. I'm not a standoffish guy. I don't say any of this to try to make anybody look dumb or anything, and I'm open to hear your thoughts on any of it. So comment below what you think, like it, share it, subscribe. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.